Hi, Pastor Doug.
Hi, Beth. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful.
So today we are here to talk about the story of Joseph, which is a big chunk of the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good piece of history in Genesis.
Yeah. So we're going to encourage you to take the time to read this story. It's found in Genesis, which is the first book in the Bible, and it starts with chapter 37 and goes all the way to chapter 50. And we're going to kind of go through the Cliff Notes,
The highlights.
Highlight
reel
version here, and many of these will also be on our website, www.gloriadaykids.org.
Yeah, many people know the story of Joseph as the infamous play Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remembered as we're recording today that I was not supposed to wear stripes, and probably even green stripes. We're probably like a green. We're a green screen here, so maybe it's our Technicolor. Anyway, yeah. We better get to the rotation. It's going to be a wonderful rotation.
So it all revolves really around our memory verse, which is from Romans 8:28. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them.
Love that verse. It really is telling us that if we have faith and trust and just turn over our lives, our work, our play, our whatever it is to God, that even in tough times, God can use those tough times for good, and good can come from them. So it's really a statement of faith. Right.
So before we get into Joseph, we're going to back up a couple of generations and start with how we actually get there. We have Abraham and Sarah, and God making a covenant with Abraham. You might remember, your descendants will number the stars and the grains of sand on the beach.
To which Sarah laughs at, but it happens. And
they have a son, Isaac. And that covenant is then passed on to Isaac. He is blessed, and he has two sons, Jacob and Esau. And then it gets passed on through Jacob, who ends up with 12 sons. And one of them is Joseph, and he happens to be his favorite son.
The youngest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, not Benjamin.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Younger.
Yes. Yeah. Younger son. Yeah. But Joseph was known as a dreamer, and liked to share his dreams. And our story takes place starts when Joseph is about 17 years old, and Jacob gives Joseph this awesome coat of many colors. And if we think about it, it's not something that a shepherd would wear.
No.
And Joseph loved it and wore it everywhere. So it was kind of like he was in his brother's face.
Yeah. I'm Dad's favorite. Look what Dad gave me, and he likes me better than you. And some of his dreams don't help him.
No.
He has dreams that he gleefully shares with his brothers. That I dreamt we were out in the wheat fields, I think, and all our bundles of wheat stood up in the field, and all your bundles of wheat came and bowed down to my bundle of wheat. And of course, pretty easy to interpret that, you're going to bow down to me.
We're going to be bowing down to you. Yeah. And another one was that the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed before me, which is representing Mom, Dad, and the brothers. Yeah. And Jacob even rebuked Joseph. Then said, Joseph, what are you talking about? What are you doing?
Your brothers are struggling with you a bit.
Yeah.
Little family infighting, but he was a dreamer and knew how to interpret these dreams. Drove his brothers crazy, so much so that finally they see him coming.
They were out in the fields. Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers, and they're like, "Hey, let's get him."
Yeah, I'm sick and tired of this kid.
Yeah, and we can.
So first they're going to kill him.
Yeah.
And then they...
Reuben speaks up.
Reuben, one of the older brothers says, well, let's not kill him and have his blood on our hands. Let's throw him into a pit and just let him die there. At least we can, pretend like we didn't do it.
Yep. So they take his coat off, put him in the pit, and then they see a caravan coming, and they're like, hey, then Judah is like, hey, let's just sell him.
Yeah, sell him to the caravan. We can be rid of him that way, and then we don't have to have his blood on our hands. Still not a very nice thing to do, but that's what happens. And
so Joseph ends up in Egypt and working for a guy named Potiphar. And he was doing really well.
Yeah.
And Potiphar's wife notices how handsome Joseph is and
starts flirting with him.
And Joseph doesn't want to have anything to do with it. So she tells a lie and gets Joseph thrown in jail.
Yeah. So it's one of those good news, bad news stories, you know. Good news, Dad likes me more than you. Bad news, his brothers are very jealous and try to do away with him. Good news, he ends up in a good place. Bad news, the wife tells a lie, he gets thrown in jail. So we're in the bad news part of the story. A couple other of Pharaoh's servants get thrown into jail alongside him. Joseph shows that he knows how to interpret their dreams.
Yeah, he tells them God is the one who interprets dreams, and through God I'm able to do that.
I have this gift.
Yeah.
And so eventually Pharaoh has some dreams. Skipping ahead a bit, but Pharaoh has some dreams, and one of the
wise men can't
figure it out. One of the people who were in jail, the cupbearer, with Joseph says, I know a guy, and they go down, clean him up, bring him up to Pharaoh, and he interprets this dream about what's going to happen.
Yeah, saying that Pharaoh had two dreams, and Joseph shares that they're really the same dream, meaning the same thing, that there's going to be 7 years of really great crops and good time, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine. And interestingly, Joseph even goes as far as to share a plan with Pharaoh. You need to find the wisest person in all of Egypt to handle this situation, so that when we get to the years of famine, you won't starve.
Yeah. Collect as much grain as you can and store it up in the 7 years of great harvest, and then in the 7 years of famine. And that's exactly what. Well, where can we find such a wise person?
Yeah, you guessed it.
He appoints Joseph.
Yep.
And sure enough, 7 years of great wealth in crop, and they store up as much as they can. And so when the rest of the land in the 7 years of famine is really hurting, everybody is coming to Egypt because they have grain, they have food.
It's not just Egypt where the famine is, it's very widespread. So in Canaan, Jacob, Joseph's dad, is like, hey brothers, why are you still here? Take some money, please go to Egypt. They're selling grain, buy some, bring it back. So the brothers are like, well, okay, and they head that way. And Joseph recognizes them right away, but they don't recognize him.
I imagine he was wearing the Egyptian robes and head dress, and probably looked quite different.
Looked different, and he had adopted an Egyptian name and probably an Egyptian wife, but not the Egyptian gods.
No, he remained true and loyal to the one God of Israel. So so he tests them to see if they had changed their ways, and after, again, it's a fascinating story. Really, I encourage you to read it. But after some testing, he finally reveals himself as their brother, and it's an interesting reaction. Hooray! Joseph, our brother, who we sold off to this caravan and left for dead, is alive. And then it's, oh no. Joseph, who we terrorized and were going to kill and sold off to a caravan, is alive and holds a position of great power. But Joseph is gracious and invites the family to come in and gives them one of the best parts of the land to live in and to be part of the Egyptian.
Right. And one of the connections we'll be making with kids is that by moving Jacob, Joseph's whole family in. If you remember, as Jacob was wrestling with God, his name was changed to Israel. So this whole family is called the Israelites, and that's how the Israelites end up in Egypt. And then there's 400 years go by, and they're in a whole nother situation and a whole nother story, but that's how...
That's when they become the slaves, and Moses comes along to free them from Egypt.
So we like to make that connection
and the history.
With kids.
A couple of connections with the New Testament. Should we go there?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, one of them is this this reaction of the brothers. Here's Isaac's son who was dead, who is now alive. That really is foreshadowing of the resurrection story, right? Jesus, this one who we put our hope in, was dead, but now is risen from the dead and is alive, and brings good news, brings salvation. The other parallel I always like to make with this Old Testament story and the resurrection story is, again, it can relate to that reaction that the brothers have. They say, "Yay, he's alive," and then, "Oh no, he's alive." I almost imagine that being the reaction of the disciples in the upper room. They get this word that Jesus, who they deserted and betrayed and denied, yea, he's alive, but then suddenly, oh no, he's alive, and we deserted him. We betrayed him. We didn't follow like we promised. What's going to happen? And of course, the first words out of Jesus' mouth when he comes to the upper room is, peace be with you. And that's our gospel message. God brings peace. In this Old Testament story, Joseph brings peace and brings his family back in and into the graces of God.
One of the things that Joseph tells his brothers, because through their dialogue, you know, in the "oh no" part, here we did all this to you, and Joseph is saying, well, let's take a look at this. God really had a plan. He brought me into Egypt so that I could save all of these people, so that there would be food for all these people. So it was really through God's purpose, or using that evil for good.
And again, it has a parallel with the resurrection story. There's what's called the theology of the cross. It's sometimes called an upside-down theology, that God is able to use even what seems to be those things that are meant for evil, that in the hands of God, even God can use those for good. So we have the symbol of the cross, which is really a symbol of torture for the Roman Empire. That's where they brutally killed people, tortured and killed people. And now that cross, that very torture symbol, is very beloved by us Christians as a symbol of hope, that God is even able to take a symbol like a cross and turn it into a symbol of hope and salvation. So wonderful. It's going to be a great rotation.
It is.
What are some of the specifics they need to know?
Here's our objectives with kids. So first of all, that they can find Genesis, know that it's in the Old Testament, and be able to talk through some of that chronology of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and then understand a little more about Joseph's family with the 12 sons and being shepherds, and then be able to retell in their own words how God was able to save Joseph through giving him this gift of being able to interpret dreams, and Joseph reconciling with his brothers and finally being reunited with his father, and understand how God can use anything for good to fulfill his promises and purposes, and that God is Lord of all, both good and evil. And then to really take that memory verse to heart, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. So really looking at what our different gifts are. So here's the fun. Here's how we're going to here's how we're working with kids on that. In the movie workshop, they're going to be watching The Ballad of Little Joe, which is
Veggie Tales.
Yep, yeah, Veggie Tales, and they'll be talking about how God can turn bad things into good things. Sure. Yeah. In the games workshop, they'll be doing an obstacle course and looking at, you know, when you were toggling before, well, here's the good part, well, here's the bad part, here's the good part, here's the bad. Taking a look at all of those setbacks and victories in Joseph's life. In the art workshop, they're going to make these really cool refrigerator magnets that are like Joseph's little colored coat with the memory verse.
Can always use more refrigerator magnets.
Yeah, and then realize that they're one of God's favorite kids. You know, they're all chosen by God, and to look at what gifts they've been given.
Wonderful.
And the computer lab kind of looks at the whole story, the big picture of the whole story, and puts that all together in order. In the cooking workshop, we're going to make dirt, Pastor Doug, and how can something yummy come out of
do tell.
A smashed Oreo. I can't give it all away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you might have to...
I might have to stop by on that one again.
Poke in the kitchen.
That's right.
And then in the science workshop, we're going to be making cement stepping stones to that have all the different colors of Joseph's coat on them with the symbol of the cross and a heart, which is a reminder that it's not always easy to follow in the footsteps of God.
I see, a stepping stone.
Yep.
Gotcha.
But we need to have faith in God and do our best. Good. Keep our eyes on Him.
Well, as usual, wonderful work, wonderful rotation. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I'm excited.
Yeah. Good. Good. Well, I will see you in church.
Yeah, in the kitchen.
In the kitchen.
Yeah.
And at Sunday school.
And at Sunday school. Thanks, Pastor Doug.
Thanks, Beth.